Chelsea. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am bringing you another monthly book recs video. Monthly book recs is a Goodreads group that was started by Leah Cooper. There are monthly prompts for recommendation lists. If you want to check out the group, I'll leave the link down below. Anyways, the topic for the month of July is revitalizing reads, which is a topic that's a little bit open for interpretation, actually sort of a lot open for interpretation of what that really means to you. It can be summary reads or comfort reads or things to get you out of a reading slump. And so I've chosen to take a very loose approach with this topic because I, like I think many other people, have a sort of sad, tired brain right now. And I would like the books that I'm reading to be, you know, revitalizing my brain and my happiness and my love of reading. And while I've read a lot of books that I appreciated and thought were quite good lately in the last few months, many of them have not particularly done that for me. Part of this for me is awards reading. There was the BookTube SFF Awards reading period, and then the Hugo reading period, and Hugo voting just closed, but I'm still like smack dab in the middle of 3 different books that I was ostensibly reading for the Hugo Awards. So anyways, the point being, I've been doing a lot of sort of dumb staring at bookshelves, thinking of all of the books that I would like to be reading right now, and then not reading them. And so I've been thinking about the kind of books that I could pick up now to revitalize my reading. And so I picked out this list in a sort of very dumb brain way of just staring at, you know, the shelves of books I have read and could recommend and thinking, like, if I were going to reread some stuff, what would my sad, tired brain want to pick up to reread? And so I picked out the first few books I'm going to recommend that way. And then I looked at what I have read the past few months and said, well, what did work? What did revitalize in some way my reading, my passion for reading and all of that in the last few months? So I've got a couple recommendations from that. And then third, I'm going to have a few recommendations that are series that I look at my TBR shelves and think, gosh, I want to keep reading that series because that would be something that would be happy on my sad, tired brain. So I can simultaneously like declare my intent to continue on with that series and also recommend the prior books that I have already read. So anyways, there's no particular real theme to this. There's no like one approach to what I think is revitalizing. This was very impulsively picked, and I think the variety here reflects that a little. But first off, right off the bat, I'm going to recommend 3 books by the author who is my go-to comfort read author, and at this point, because I have read all of her novels, my go-to comfort reread author, who is McKinley. And the 3 I'm going to recommend are specifically the trio of books that I think best encapsulate the type of fantasy that she is best known for. Not all of her books are like this. Some of them are very, very different, but I think a lot of people, when they think of McKinley, think of these sweet, wholesome fairy tale retellings. And the 3 that fit the bill are her 2 Beauty and the Beast retellings, Beauty and Rose Daughter, and also her Sleeping Beauty retelling, Spindle's End. I will say that Deerskin is also a fairy tale retelling, and it's one of my favorite books of hers, but it is way, way darker in content, in subject matter, in tone than these 3. Chalice is similarly sweet and whimsical, but not a fairy tale retelling. I am due for a reread of all 3 of these books. These are all books that it's been long enough since I've read them that I would happily reread them. I think Beauty is the first on this list for me to reread in the reread queue because this is the book of hers that I think it's been longest since I've read. It was her debut novel, and it is her simplest book. It's a very short, sweet, straightforward retelling. This was one that I owned and read in my childhood, and so it has nostalgia for me. These other 2 I didn't read until I was an adult, and they are slightly more mature books in terms of the writing style. McKinley's writing style is typically a little long-winded and meandering in a way that I think frustrates a lot of readers who expect strong story structure or pacing. That's not the kind of books these are. These are whimsical and witty and enchanting. And these are the 3 books of hers that I think specifically fit into that particular niche, that whimsical and witty and enchanting fairy tale retelling niche. Next, I want to recommend one of my all-time favorite YA novels that I read a couple years ago and kind of would like to reread at some point because I think it would make me happy. And that is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. I feel like I may have a bit of a brand or a theme here because this is also another book where it is slow-paced and witty and meandering. There are so many little things about this book that I love that it is hard for me to sort of wrap up in one little go here why I feel like this is a revitalizing book that I want to recommend. It's about a boy named Elliot who gets to go to a portal world, to go to a sort of magic school in a fantasy world that doesn't actually have much magic. Except he's decidedly not a chosen one. It is not his job to save this world. It's a bit of a military school and he's decidedly a pacifist, so he really doesn't fit in. He has this very abrasive personality that you will grow to love over the course of a long acquaintance with him over several years. And it's about him and his 2 closest friends in this world, a warrior elf girl from a matriarchal elven society named Serene, and a warrior sports boy named Luke from a distinguished human family in this world who seems like much more of a destined hero than Elliot could ever be. This book is very funny, but also very emotional. It's very introspective. It deals with themes of queerness and coming of age and finding your place in the world. And it's just lovely. It's just lovely. Now we're on to the books that have actually revitalized me in recent months, and this is a very different looking couple of recommendations because they're both like very fast-paced sci-fi. So like, I know my brain is somehow trained to look at bookshelves and say like what will revitalize me as whimsical fairy tales. But like maybe what actually revitalizes me is fast-paced science fiction. Specifically fast-paced science fiction with really great casts of characters. That's important. So I think my most successful single like streak of reading during this entire year has been the 1 week in which I binge reread all 4 Murderbot novellas and then read the new novel Network Effect, all back to back. I actually think that took me like only 6 days, not even a full week, because I read like 1 novella a day and then 2 days for the novel. And that has been just like one of the experiences that has brought me the most pure joy in recent months, has been just absolutely immersing myself in Murderbot. And I do think it is this fine balance of really deeply lovable characters, especially the protagonist, Murderbot, but also a strong cast of supporting characters in each book. And I did appreciate the supporting characters in the novellas better this time around. I think the first time I read through, I was reading mostly for the plot, and I didn't get as strong an image of who some of the supporting cast were in each of the novellas, because not all those characters return in other books. And so in that way, the reread of those was somewhat more rewarding for me. But anyways, it's that combination of those characters with some really like fast-paced, high-stakes, Murderbot saves the day, reluctant hero stuff that is just so deeply, deeply addictive. And then I sort of had a very similar experience with another book that has some very specific things in common with the Murderbot books. Specifically like the fast-paced, high-stakes AI sci-fi plot with really compelling characters. and that is Catfishing on Catnet by Naomi Kritzer, which is a near-future YA novel. This has a great cast of teenage characters who are internet friends with an AI who is also a great character. There is, as with the Murderbot books, a great deal of peril. In this case, it is the main character, Steph's very scary estranged father who is trying to hunt down her and her mother. But ultimately, of course, the secrets are revealed and the day is saved, and all of the friends get to be supportive friends. I mentioned that I binge read all of the Murderbot books in under a week. This one I pulled an all-nighter and read in one night. And I almost never do that. And then here we are to the last section of this list where I have some books in series that I think I want to read because they might do the job for me based on my experience of previous books in these series. I have a lot of ongoing series right now, and I'm always staring at them like, will I ever have time to finish these, or will other things take priority, other group reads, awards reading, new releases, things I should be reviewing, etc., etc., etc. But these are 3 series that I imagine would be very revitalizing and fun for me to finish right now. The first is the Arabella Ashby series by David D. Levine. The first book is Arabella of Mars. The second is Arabella and the Battle of Venus. This third book is the only one I haven't read yet. I am 1 book away from finishing the trilogy, and it's Arabella, the Traitor of Mars. It's been so long since I read the first 2, and like it was a long time between when I read the first one and the second one. I'm really drawing a series out these days. It's really bad. But these are fun Regency space travel steampunk adventure, and they're great. And both of the first 2 books in the series were things that just sucked me in and made me forget my troubles. So this one is definitely one I want to read. The next trilogy that I am 1 book away from being able to finish that I have been dragging out for years is the WondLa trilogy by Tony DiTerlizzi, which is middle grade sci-fi. Now, I'm not exactly sure how revitalizing this will be. I remember thinking when I read the second book in this trilogy that it was going to be like light and fluffy, and then being sort of surprised because it had been so long since I'd read the first book at how heavy some of the themes were. But nevertheless, these are really fast-paced and engrossing reads with great illustrations. They are heavily illustrated by the author. And it's this very inventive sci-fi story with great alien characters and alien plants and animals and all of that. That's just so much fun, and it's so immersive. It's about a girl who's been raised by a robot in an underground habitat, and in the first book, The Search for WondLa, she comes above ground after her habitat is destroyed and discovers that she's living in this totally alien world, and she goes off in search of other humans. In the second book, she found the humans, but if I recall correctly, the humans turned out to be the bad guys, which was great. And now, I think she's probably got to save the world or something. It's going to be good. I just feel like this is going to be engrossing in a way that I'm really going to want to read, and it is middle grade, and I feel like middle grade is very revitalizing for me. I always procrastinate all of the middle grade books on my TBR, but they are there for a reason. I really, really like them. There's another illustration that's just very, very pretty. And then the third series that I want to continue on with and maybe finish, although I have definitely more than one of these still to read, is the Memoirs of Lady Trent series by Brennan. I've read the first 3 books, A Natural History of Dragons, Tropic of Serpents, and Voyage of the Basilisk. The next one I have to read is this one, book 4, In the Labyrinth of Drakes. This is a series where I've rated all 3 prior books that I read consistently 4 stars, which reflects my personal enjoyment of all 3 books. Although on the other hand, I do feel that there are ways that those 3 books improve and get better as the series progresses. If you're looking specifically for something revitalizing, I would recommend pressing past book 1. Book 1, I think, felt sort of heavy to me in ways that books 2 and 3 didn't. Books 2 and 3 get much more like fun adventuring in them, especially book 3. But this is a Fantasy of Manners series that takes place in a non-magical fantasy world with dragons that are animals type dragons as opposed to like people type dragons. And the main character becomes a lady dragon naturalist, and she travels the world studying dragons, and the fictional biology is really fun. And so are the adventures, and it's all shrouded in this fantasy of manners social commentary of this Victorian-ish era. So there you have it. Those are some very impulsive revitalizing picks that aren't particularly thematically cohesive. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you think. Let me know what sort of books you think are revitalizing and why. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.